Ladies, gentle giants, Oompa Loompas, Minpins and Wangdoodles, is you sitting comfortably? Good. Do you have your pencils and paper at the ready? Good. Then please join in the countdown for Roald Dahl Day 2017. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And a very happy Roald Dahl Day. Now, at this very moment, you are watching with thousands of other school children in their classrooms around the world. So a big hello to everybody watching. Now we know that Roald Dahl is of course the creator of some of our all-time favourite heroes like ingenious Matilda, lucky Charlie Bucket and marvellous scientist George. And this year, adventurous Billy joins them as his story is illustrated by Quentin Blake for the very first time. Now you may not know that one of Roald Dahl's most famous lines is actually on the final page of this book. It goes,
"Watch with glittering eyes the whole world around you, because the greatest secrets are always hidden in the most unlikely places. Those who don't believe in magic will never find it."
Which is why today we have come to Great Missenden, the village where Roald Dahl lived, to find out exactly where that magic began. If you're watching in your classroom, then tweet using the hashtag #BelieveInMagic if you want to see your school's name appear on the screen. To show us around is Steve Gardam, the director of the Roald Dahl Museum and Story Centre. Hiya, Steve.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. You're all very welcome to the museum today.
Why is there a museum?
I'm glad you asked me that. Well, like all museums, this museum is here to look after some rare and special things. And everything that we have is linked to creating Roald Dahl stories. It might be some of his old notebooks, or even some of his old clothes.
Well, I'm so excited to have a look around with you guys. It's going to be brilliant. But before we do that, which Roald Dahl character do you think you're most like? Don't answer me straight away because we've got a special quiz to help you find out.
It's time to find out which Roald Dahl hero you are. So grab a pen and some paper to write down your answers. Question 1. What's your favourite thing to do? A. Reading books. B. Going outside and exploring. C. Eating delicious chocolate. Or D. Experimenting and mixing up strange things. Question 2. How would you describe yourselves? A. A mischievous bookworm. B. Curious and adventurous. C. Lucky and caring. Or D. Daring and inventive. Question 3. What do you want to be when you grow up? A. An author. B. An adventurer. C. A chef. D. A scientist. Question 4. How would you get yourself out of a tricky situation? A. Think of a trick or play a prank. B. I wouldn't be afraid. I'm sure there's a way to get out of trouble. C. I'd think of an invention. D. I'd mix up a potion to solve all my problems. Question 5. Where do you feel most at home? A. In the library. B. In the woods. C. In sweet shops. D. In the kitchen. Now take a look at your answers and see if you've got mostly A's, B's, C's or D's. It's time to find out which Roald Dahl hero you are. If you got mostly A's, you're most like Matilda. You love reading, writing, and playing a trick or two. If you got mostly B's, you're most like Billy. You're a curious adventurer who would fearlessly bound into the forest and find a way to outwit the Gruncher. If you got mostly C's, you're most like Charlie. You always think carefully before making a decision and love chocolate. And last but not least, if you got mostly D's, you're most like George. You're a scientist in the making, which means you've been able to conjure up a perfect solution for any situation. Which character were you? Let us know by tweeting @PuffinBooks using the hashtag #BelieveInMagic. Back to you, Katie.
So if you've got a class full of Charlie Buckets or adventurous Billies, let us know by tweeting and using the hashtag #BelieveInMagic, and you could see your school getting a shout out on the screen. Where's everyone gone? I'm on my own here.
We're in the archive!
So here we are in the museum store, surrounded by boxes and boxes of precious things. And what we have is loads and loads of precious paper. It's Roald's archive, his working drafts, the first versions of the stories. Roald was a genius, but he wasn't a genius because he got it right first time. He was a genius because he kept going over and over again on everything he wrote until he got it just right. But we don't just have paper. Sometimes we have special things from Roald's life. So I think you can see here his Royal Air Force jacket. He was a fighter pilot in the Second World War, and this is the jacket that he would have worn. You can see what a big guy he was. And this period in his life when he was a fighter pilot, it was scary, it was dangerous, but he absolutely loved flying. And that love of the feeling of flying comes into so many of his stories. And we'll hear a bit more about that later today. So in this folder, there's some things that I also want to show Katie as well. Shall we go to where she is? Yep. So what we're going to do is 1, 2, 3, click, and we'll be there. You ready? 1, 2, 3.
Magic! Well, thank you very much for joining me, everyone. I was down here in the gift shop all on my own. And now I'm absolutely dying to see what you've been looking at. So, Steve, what is in this folder?
Well, in a museum full of treasures, this is extra special. So what we have in this folder are the seeds from which the final book of Billy and the Minpins grew. Let me take you through it. It's just a few pieces of paper, but they're so full of wonder.
How exciting.
So what we're going to see first, this page is in special plastic to protect it. This is a page from one of Roald's ideas files. He wrote down ideas that he thought might turn into stories. Here's one, The Child Who Could Move Things. What does that make you think of?
Matilda!
That's right. This could well be the first time he'd actually caught that idea on a piece of paper. But this is the one that we're interested in, The Tiny Humans in the Hollow Tree.
Who's that then?
Minpins!
The Minpins, that's right. Can I just give that
Of
to you
course
to
you
hold,
can. I'm
Katie?
going to hold that very carefully.
And then here we have the first page of the first full draft where he writes the title, Little Billy and the Minpins, for the first time.
Well, how many of you have already read Billy and the Minpins in your classrooms? Put your hand up. Let's see a show of hands if you've already read the book. Brilliant stuff. Well, for those of you who haven't, listen very carefully because right now we're going to get a sneak peek of the story. Now, the story starts with little Billy, whose mum says he must never go into the forest because it's full of wang-doogles and hornswogglers. But Billy doesn't listen, and out he goes, out of the garden gate and into the dark forest beyond. Uh-oh. First everything seems fine, but then he hears a squooshing, washling, whiffling, snorting noise, and the noise is coming after him. So he runs and he keeps on running and running, and at last he climbs a tree to try and escape, and when he does, who do you think he meets?
Minpins!
The Minpins, yes, correct. Well, we're going to take a look at them now, and I want all of you in your classrooms and you guys here to pay attention because I'm going to have some questions for you, all right? I'm going to be asking you, what do Minpins wear on their feet, and who is the chief Minpin? What is their name, okay? You watching? Have a little look.
But who are you? Little Billy asked, taking care to speak very softly this time. We are the Minpins, the tiny man said, and we own this wood. I shall come closer, then you will hear me better. The old Minpin climbed out of his window and walked straight down the big, steeply sloping branch, then up another branch, until he found a place only a few inches from little Billy's face. It was amazing to see him walking up and down these almost vertical branches without the slightest trouble. It was like seeing someone walking up and down a wall. How on earth do you do that? Little Billy asked. Suction boots, the Minpin said. We all wear them. You can't live in trees without suction boots. On his feet, he was wearing tiny green boots, rather like miniature wellies. His clothes were curiously old-fashioned, mostly brown and black, the sort of thing people wore 200 or 300 years ago. Suddenly, all the other Minpins, men, women and children, were climbing out of their windows and making their ways towards little Billy. Their suction boots seemed to allow them to walk up and down the steepest branches with the greatest ease. And some were even walking upside down underneath the branches. All of them were wearing these old-fashioned clothes from hundreds of years ago, and several had on very peculiar hats and bonnets. They stood or sat in groups on all the branches around little Billy, staring at him as though he was someone from outer space. "But do all of you actually live inside this tree?" little Billy asked. The old Min-Pin said, "All the trees in this forest are hollow. Not just this one, but all of them. And inside them, thousands and thousands of Min-Pins are living. These great trees are filled with rooms and staircases, not just in the big main trunk, but in most of the other branches as well. This is a Min-Pin forest, and it's not the only one in England." "Could I peep inside?" little Billy said. Of course, the old Min-Pin said. "Put your eye close to that window."
Aren't Quentin Blake's new illustrations absolutely amazing?
They really are.
They are gorgeous. Now let's see if you are listening carefully. You guys at home in your classrooms, pay attention, and you lot here, I'm going to ask you some questions, all right? I want to know, what do Min-Pins wear on their feet?
Suction boots.
Suction boots, of course they do. And what is the name of the chief Min-Pin?
Dominic.
Domini, well done, excellent work.
Fantastic.
Did you get the questions right in your schools? If so, tweet us. We want you to tweet using the hashtag #BelieveInMagic, and your school could be getting a shout out on the screen. How did you do at St Joseph's or at Heckington Primary School? Let us know, we really want to hear from you. Now Steve, where did Roald Dahl get the idea for the Min-Pins from?
Well, earlier on we saw Roald's Royal Air Force jacket, and when he was in the RAF, pilots used to make up stories about tiny creatures that lived in trees that were responsible for all the little problems that their aeroplanes experienced. And these tiny creatures were called?
Gremlins.
They were called gremlins, that's right, not Min-Pins, but very similar in lots of ways, right down to the suction boots that they wore on their feet. Now, when Roald was in the RAF, he actually got sent to America and he started writing some stories, and he wrote a story about the gremlins. And it was going to be turned into a movie made by Walt Disney. Now, the movie didn't actually get made, but lots of drawings were done, and those drawings were put together with Roald words in the first book he ever had published, way back in 1943. And here it is, The Gremlins, from the Walt Disney production by Flight Lieutenant Roald Dahl.
See, lots of people wouldn't necessarily know that that was Roald Dahl's first book.
Absolutely, and he obviously loved the idea of tiny people wearing suction boots that lived in trees so much, he came back to it and turned it into a new story, Billy and the Min-Pins.
Wow, that is absolutely fantastic. Well, there you go. We know a bit more about Roald Dahl now. We know that he lived a very exciting life as an RAF pilot, but it was actually when he moved here to Great Missenden that he did most of his writing.
That's right.
So let's find out a little bit more about that. So Steve, what have we got here?
So here we are, stood in the recreation of the actual interior of Roald Dahl's writing hut in the garden of his house, and he went there every day to do his work. So that amazing chair, battered and tired though it might be, is the chair in which he sat to write the stories and the characters that you know and love so well, every single one. And there's a couple of things I have to point out. One is a dull metal silver ball, and that's made out of chocolate wrappers, chocolate foil wrappers. One day he kept one and he just scrunched up in a ball. The next day he had another chocolate bar. He really loved chocolate. And he put that and he made the ball a little bit bigger, and he kept going. And it now weighs 300 grams.
That is unbelievable.
Now there's another round object on there which I really have to tell you about. It's the orange ball.
Looks like an onion.
It looks like an onion, but it's actually Roald Dahl's hip bone. And he had an operation to replace his hip bone when he got a bit older. And the surgeon said, "Your hip bone, damaged though it may be, is the largest I've ever seen." And Roald Dahl said, "That's brilliant, can I keep it?" And the surgeon said yes. And he put it on his desk.
You can also see some of Quentin Blake's illustrations on the wall at the back there. Am I right in thinking that the first book that Quentin Blake illustrated for Roald Dahl was The Enormous Crocodile?
That's exactly right, in 1978.
Wowzers, and he's done many more since then. And we're going to get a very special treat now, which you can't get anywhere else. We're going to go in to Quentin Blake's studio, and you are going to need your pencils and your paper for a draw-along.
When I'm doing the illustrations, I'm reading the text, thinking how the text might break up and which are the moments that I'd like to draw. And then I do rough drawings of those. And that may be that drawing. Sometimes the first thing I draw is what survives, sometimes I change it quite a lot. I need to do some experimental pictures just to find out exactly what it's like. And in fact, I do a lot of drawings I do 2 or 3 times until I find out exactly the way I want to do them. And then I set to work on the whole sequence. I do a rough drawing of that, then I put it on the light box here, and then I use a sheet of watercolour paper, or it's a watercolour paper you can draw with a pen on as well as take watercolour. And then I can just sort of partly see the drawing underneath. And these drawings I've done, as I do many drawings, in black and white initially, in just this pen, which dips in a bottle of Indian ink. And then I move across here to this desk where I've got watercolours, and then I add watercolour to it. What I've rather enjoyed drawing sometimes is creatures that get mentioned in the books, but I've never actually had a chance to draw before.
Wangdoodles are worse, his mother said, and hornswogglers, and snozwanglers, and vermicious canids. And worst of all is the terrible blood-suckling, tooth-pluckling, stone-chuckling spittler. There's one of them in there too.
It doesn't say what they're like, so in a way you can do anything you like. I mean, if I say this is all we know is that they're very unpleasant. I mean, they'd eat Oompa Loompas if they possibly could. If you like to draw something, well, you can make up your own version of it. Because that's one of the good things about drawing, really, is you can have, if nobody's telling you otherwise, you can have whatever you like. So many legs. Some sort of tail, I think, would be nice. Possibly with spikes. Because it has to be very unpleasant. Ghastly wings, perhaps. More spikes. Spikes and bumps are always very enjoyable. Right. Spotty legs. Horrible claws. That's what a hornswoggler looks like today, anyway. And you can do some more of your own and decide what colour they look as well. Hope that's all right.
That was absolutely amazing. Thank you very much to Quentin Blake there. And don't forget, you can win a signed copy of Billy and the Minpins over on the Puffin website. Now I'm going to go and track down Steve and see if he fancies a bit of an adventure.
So the museum is here in Great Missenden, the village where Roald Dahl lived and worked for 36 years. He would have walked down this high street every single day, and things he saw every day made their way into his stories. These amazing petrol pumps are a filling station. Now the filling station's closed, but he imagined the filling station on the edge of a village as the home of Danny, the champion of the world. And there's other things as well. The library in the village, he imagined that as Matilda's library. It's just an ordinary public library, but it's amazing because it's where Matilda went, made friends with Mrs. Phelps, read all the books she could. So here we are, on the edge of the village of Great Missenden. And Roald Dahl lived on the edge of the village, and the woods ahead of us were woods that he would have really loved walking in. He really loved the countryside and wrote about it in so many of his stories, including one of my favourite books, Danny the Champion of the World, but also in his last book.
So shall we go into the forest and see if we can find some min pins?
Yeah!
Let's go, shall we?
So here we are, the start of Angling Spring Wood, the place where Roald Dahl imagined the min pin. So if you are in the woods, you look up into the trees, if you keep your eyes really sharp, you might just spot a little tiny min pin of your own.
And do you know what? I think while we're here, this is a pretty good place for a picnic. Should we go and get some grub?
Yeah!
Come on then.
Perfect.
Oh yeah, that red is up there. It's up there. No, I'm not joking. There's one up there.
Now joining us for our Min Pins inspired picnic is awesome author and YouTube inventor Colin Furze. Hi Colin.
How are we doing? Happy Roald Dahl Day.
Happy Roald Dahl Day. Yeah, we're here celebrating Roald Dahl, but also you've got this brilliant book out as well. So we're talking a bit about that. Now for people watching who haven't seen your YouTube videos before, tell us a bit about some of the things you've invented.
Oh, it's amazing. I've done like hover bikes, so like bikes that fly. I've done this massive swing that like you go right upside down and you're not higher than the house. Guitars that shoot fire.
Yeah, I can see that there.
A cake machine which kind of just chucks cake in your mouth faster than you can eat it.
What?
Toasting knives that toast the bread as you cut it. You name it, I've had to go all sorts of weird stuff.
What inspired you to invent things?
Well, I kind of just started making things and then I just got kind of better at it really enjoyed it. Started you know, messing around. I used to make things for my BMX bike and stuff like that, so both brake levers work both brakes, which was very useful at the time. And then I started like, filming videos, sticking it on YouTube. Everyone started watching them, really liking it, and then it kind of just steamrolled from there, really.
Well, of course, some of our favourite Roald Dahl heroes were inventors as well. We've got George with his marvellous medicine. We've got Willy Wonka with his fizzy lifting drinks and all kinds of things, everlasting gobstoppers. Who is your favourite Roald Dahl inventor?
Well, I kind of like the Twits.
Okay.
Because there was a prank that they played on each other where he would stick little bits on the Twit's walking stick in his chair to make him think that he was getting smaller. Now, it's not an invention, I say, but I did find that quite funny, and it was one of the things that stuck in my mind as a kid.
If you could sort of think of one Roald Dahl invention to actually have in real life, what would it be?
Well, I'd quite like a chocolate factory, like the actual chocolate factory in the book, because I've been to the one in Birmingham, and I went there with a spoon, thinking that there'd be some big river of chocolate, and I'd just be able to dig and eat it. And you know, it was very nice, but I was quite disappointed. You know, I wanted Oompa Loompas and you know, fountains and stuff of chocolate. So I think we should generally set one of them up.
Oh, of course, we couldn't get Colin here without asking him to invent something inspired by Roald Dahl. So you guys watching in your classrooms, I want you to sit up straight. I want you to put your safety goggles on and have a little look at what Colin came up with.
Hi, I'm Colin Furze, YouTube inventor and author of This Book Isn't Safe. This book, which isn't safe. Now, I love Roald Dahl stories. They're full of inventors who like to make stuff for mischief, for magic, and sometimes to even change the world. Billy, he is one of those heroes, and he has got to come up with something to save the day, because he and the Min Pins have a serious problem. And the problem is the fearsome Gruncher. He's a red-hot, smoke-belching beast that lives in the forest and is busy guzzling up millions of min pins. Now, no one's really seen him because he's always surrounded by smoke, and if you get too close and he gobbles you up, he's got fire in his belly. And I kind of thought, what would it be like to approach a potential fire-breathing beast like the Gruncher? So, I've got an underground bunker in my back garden, and I've made a little adaptation to kind of give me an insight of what that would feel like. So, let's go and have a look.
Right, come this way. I think he's down here.
Oh, it's the Gruncher! Well, actually, it's not. Now, what that actually was this. One of my flame-throwing guitars. Yes, what an awesome invention. And just a couple of little adaptations, because, you know, a Gruncher needs a character, so it needs eyes. So I've made these little brackets and put these little red LEDs on. the batteries are kind of just taped up behind it, so it's not a very good guitar anymore. Look, because it's all out of tune because there's batteries taped to the strings. But you know, I'm trying to make a gruncher, not a rock star. And then also, I got the little flame nozzles. Now normally on stage you'd want these to go straight ahead so you don't either burn your feet or take the drummer's hair off. So I'd spread them out so that it gives more appearance of like fire-breathing nostrils. And there we are! That's the Colin Firth edition of the Gruncher. And let's hope that's the closest I ever get to seeing one. So, happy Roald Dahl Day everyone, but which Roald Dahl inventor is your favourite?
Wow, how cool was that? Now remember, if you are inventing anything with fire, you must work with a grown-up. And if you want to find out if Billy manages to save the min pins from the red-hot, smoke-belching Gruncher, well, you're just going to have to read the book, aren't you? There are loads of ways that you can bring the magic in Roald Dahl stories to life. So when you go to bed tonight, why don't you try and catch a dream for the BFG, or you could bake a mini feast for a min pin. Now we're coming to the end of the show, but you can sign up right now for December's Puffin Virtually Live special, where the illustrators take over. It's been a really brilliant day, so thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, if you believe in magic, you might just find it. Until next year, happy Roald Dahl Day!
And action!